Welcome back to my channel Edify Learners. In this session, we are discussing the important concepts of acid, bases, and salts for your upcoming FAs and examinations. Now, to understand the topic of acid, bases, and salts, we need to first understand what do you mean by indicators. Now, what are indicators? Indicators are nothing but these are the organic compounds that identify the acid and bases by changing color and smell. So, first thing that you need to remember is it is organic compound which is used for identifying the acids and base. How? By changing their color and smell. Okay, so we generally classify indicators into two types based on their occurrence. First is the natural indicators, second is the synthetic indicators, and third is the olfactory indicators. Okay, so based on how they occur is the base of classifying. First is the natural indicator, second is the synthetic indicator, and third one is the olfactory indicator. Now let us study one after the other. What do you mean by different types of indicators? Now, what are natural indicators? Now, natural indicators, they are nothing but these are the substance that is used as an indicator which are occurred naturally. As the name itself says that I am natural. Natural indicator says that I am natural. Therefore, naturally occurring substance used as an indicator, they are called as natural indicators. Now, examples, if they ask you, you can say it is litmus paper, turmeric, red cabbage, some flowers, color petals, etc. Okay. Now, what is litmus paper? Now, litmus paper is nothing but it is a solution. It is a solution extracted from lichen, which belongs to the plant, that is Thallophyta division. You have studied this in your class 9th. What is Thallophyta division? Okay, so this is nothing but it's a solution extracted from the plant, that is the lichen plant, which belongs to the Thallophyta division. Now, what happens here is the litmus paper will help you to detect whether the given substance is acidic or basic. Now, whenever the litmus paper turns from blue to red, okay, it means the given solution is acidic. If it is basic, then it will turn itself from red to blue. So this is very important. Acidic media will always change the litmus paper red in color, and basic media will always change the litmus paper into blue in color. Okay. Now next, moving on to synthetic indicators. What do you mean by synthetic indicators? Now synthetic means they are, in the easy words we can say it is nothing but the man-made indicators. Okay. Now man-made indicators, that is they are made in the laboratory. Okay. They are usually made in the labs. Now since they consist of the artificial substance, since it is man-made, since it is made in lab and it consists of the artificial substance, we call this as the synthetic indicators. Now, the common examples that we use for synthetic indicators is first is phenolphthalein indicator. Phenolphthalein indicator, and the second one is methyl orange indicator. Okay. Now let us understand how does these synthetic indicators behave when they are in acid and in basic solutions. So let's start with the phenolphthalein indicators first. Now phenolphthalein indicators, whenever the phenolphthalein is added in any acidic media, okay, then the color of the phenolphthalein becomes colorless. Clear. Now same thing, if it is added in basic media, it becomes pink in color, and if it is added in neutral media, it becomes colorless. So these are the properties or the uh, behavior of the phenolphthalein indicator. So in the acidic media, it becomes colorless. In the basic media, it becomes pink, and in the neutral media, it becomes colorless. Now let's moving on to the methyl orange indicator, which is the second most common type of synthetic indicator. So here, whenever the methyl orange indicator, the name itself said it is in a methyl orange, right? So whenever there is an acidic media comes in contact with the methyl orange indicator, then the color changes to red. In the basic media, the color changes to yellow, and in the neutral media, the color changes to orange. Okay, so here it is red, yellow, orange, and here it is colorless, pink, and colorless. So, how you can remember is you can remember phenolphthalein indicators behavior as CPC. Okay, so it means in acidic it becomes colorless, in basic it becomes pink, and in neutral media it becomes colorless. So whereas in methyl orange indicator, how you can remember is RYO. Now what is it? Whenever it comes in acid, it becomes red. Whenever it comes in contact with basic, it becomes yellow. And whenever it comes in contact with neutral media, it becomes orange. Okay, so very simple. CPC and RYO. Now next, olfactory indicators. Now olfactory, the name itself suggests that it is something with regards to smell. Okay, so the substance whose smell or odor changes in acidic or basic solutions are called as olfactory indicators. So if the smell or the odor changes in the presence of acidic or basic, those kind of indicators are called as the olfactory indicators. Example, onion, vanilla, and clove extract. These are the common examples of the olfactory indicators which are present in our kitchen as well. Okay. So this is the most important thing for you to understand about the indicators, how the indicators help us in identifying the acid, bases, and at the same time how many types of indicators we have the natural indicators, we have the synthetic indicators, and we have the olfactory indicators. Now let's move on to understand how do acids and bases react with metals. Now any acid and any bases, when it comes in contact with the metals, what is going to happen? This is what we are going to understand here. So whenever the acid reacts with metal, it gives salt plus it gives you hydrogen gas. So this is your general formula where it says that acid plus metal, any acid plus metal will give you salt plus hydrogen gases released. So example, common examples of acid we have as H2SO4, that is our sulfuric acid, plus metal is zinc. Now whenever the sulfuric acid comes in contact with the zinc, we get ZnSO4, which is nothing but a zinc sulfate, which is nothing but the salt, and the hydrogen gas is evolved, isn't it? So this is the one of the example of how acid comes in contact with the metal and what does it give. Second example, H2SO4 plus metal, again we have Fe. So here we have FeSO4 plus H2, that is sulfuric acid. When it comes in contact with iron, it gives you iron sulfate, it is ferrous sulfate plus hydrogen gases released. So same way, if we take the example of the acid as HCl plus 2Na, that is our sodium, it gives you sodium chloride plus hydrogen. So everywhere you see that the salt is produced and hydrogen gas is evolved. So it is satisfying the general formula, isn't it? So H2SO4 plus Zn will give you ZnSO4 plus H2, and H2SO4 plus Fe will give you FeSO4 plus H2, and HCl plus Na will give you NaCl plus H2. Therefore, it satisfies our general formula. So you need to remember this, that acid plus metal will give you salt plus hydrogen gas is released. Okay, so this is the shortest form that you can understand. Acid plus metal will give you salt plus H2. Okay, so let me write down the salt here. Salt plus H2 is released. Now coming to the hydrogen gas conformation. Now how do we assure that the gas which is evolved during the process of reaction between acid and metal is hydrogen gas itself? Now the conformation we can get it only when hydrogen gas, it makes a popping sound. It makes a popping sound if burning candle near a gas filled bubble. Okay, so whenever there's a popping sound heard, if the burning candle is kept near the gas filled bubble, then it is confirmed that it is hydrogen. Okay. So let's move to the what happens to base when it reacts with metal. Now here also we see that when base reacts with metal, it gives salt, same as acid, and evolution of hydrogen gas. But so important, but it is not possible with all metals. Okay, so there is an exceptional case here, exceptional case that all metals, whenever it combine with base, we cannot expect salt and hydrogen gas. Okay, so there's an exceptional case here. Now, example 2NaOH, our sodium hydroxide in aqueous form, if it comes in contact with zinc, this is our base, this is our metal. So, base plus metal will give you sodium zincate, which is our salt again, plus hydrogen gas. Okay, so 2NaOH, that is our aqueous form, plus Zn, that is in the solid form, will give you Na2ZnO2, that is sodium zincate, that is salt, plus hydrogen gas is evolved. Okay, next, how do metal carbonates and metal hydrogen carbonates react with acids? So in the previous thing we heard that what happens when acid reacts with metal, we understood what happens when base reacts with metal. Now let us understand what happens when acid reacts with metal carbonates and metal hydrogen carbonates. Okay, so here we need to understand the general formula. The general formula is whenever the acid reacts with metal carbonate, whenever the acid reacts with metal carbonate, it gives you salt, it gives you carbon dioxide, and it gives you water. Okay, so acid plus metal carbonate will give you salt plus carbon dioxide plus water. So you can write it down as salt plus CO2 plus H2O. So this is what we are going to get as the byproducts after acid comes in contact with metal carbonate. So the common example that is used here is HCl. HCl, when it comes in contact with the sodium carbonate, HCl is the acid. Metal carbonate is nothing but the sodium carbonate. We get NaCl, that is sodium chloride plus carbon dioxide plus water. Okay, so in the same way, when the acid reacts with metal hydrogen carbonate, what does it give? Again, it will give you salt, carbon dioxide, and water. So basically, the byproducts are same for metal carbonates and the metal hydrogen carbonates. So acid plus metal carbonate will give you salt, carbon dioxide, and water, and acid plus metal hydrogen carbonate will also give you salt plus carbon dioxide plus water. Okay, let's see an example for this. Acid, example HCl we have taken, and we have taken the metal hydrogen carbonate, it is sodium hydrogen carbonate, and we see that the byproduct it is formed is salt, water, and the carbon dioxide. The gas that is produced here is carbon dioxide, and the water is confirmed, it is formed. Now, how will you confirm? Now, as here we confirm that whenever there is a hydrogen gas being evolved, we confirm when it makes a popping sound if burning candle is brought near a gas filled bubble. Whereas in this part, how to confirm whether the gas which is evolved is carbon dioxide or not? How to confirm? Now, this carbon dioxide, when this gas is passed through the lime water, when the carbon dioxide gas, which is evolving, when that is collected and when it is passed through the lime water, we get the white precipitate of calcium carbonate. Okay, so this is a byproduct that occurs when carbon dioxide comes in contact with the lime water. So this is nothing but a confirmation for you to understand that the gas which is evolved during the reaction process is nothing but the carbon dioxide. Okay, so therefore carbon dioxide will always give you the white precipitate of calcium carbonate when it is passed through the lime water. So the chemical formula you can write down as this: where the lime water formula is CaOH2 aqueous form plus CO2. It is gaseous, that is when we are passing through, we get the calcium carbonate. It is the precipitate of calcium carbonate and the water is formed. Clear? Next, if excess carbon dioxide is passed through lime water, the formed product calcium carbonate, it is white precipitate, converted into water solution calcium hydrogen carbonate. Now this is in the limited form. Now same thing if it is excessively passed through the lime water. Understand this. This is just carbon dioxide passing the gas to the lime water. But if the excess carbon dioxide is passed to the lime water, the product, the formed product, it is this calcium carbonate, it is a white precipitate, converted, it is converted into the water soluble calcium hydrogen carbonate. So there is a difference in this. Okay, here carbon dioxide is passed to the lime water. So here we find the white precipitate of the calcium carbonate and the water is formed. But if the excessive carbon dioxide is passed through the the lime water, then the formed product, that is the CaCO3 white precipitate which was there, it will convert itself to the water soluble calcium hydrogen carbonate whose formula is CaHCO3 in the aqueous form. I hope this is clear for you. Now next, moving on to how do acids and bases react with each other. Now here until now we learned how acid reacts with the base, how acid reacts with the metal, how base reacts with the metal, how acid reacts with the metal carbonate, and how acid reacts with the metal hydrogen carbonate. But now we are going to learn what happens if the acid and bases are combined. What happens to them? What is the reaction that we are going to get? So the reaction between an acid and base will always give you salt and water. Okay, so whenever the acid combines with the base, it gives you salt plus water, and this reaction when the acid and base combines together is called as the neutralization reaction, and this is extremely important for your other chapter, that is your chemical equations and reactions. So there also you get this neutralization reaction. So therefore acid and base, whenever it combines, it gives you salt and water, and therefore this reaction is called as the neutralization reaction. Example for this is HCl, that is our acid, and NaOH, that is our base. When it combines together, it will give you NaCl, and the byproduct, other byproduct is the water. Okay, so in the same way HCl, when it combines with the potassium hydroxide, we get the potassium chloride plus water. Okay, so this is the common example for the neutralization reaction. So in the same way we have sulfuric acid and we have the potassium hydroxide. So we get the potassium sulfate, it is our salt plus water. So these are very common examples of the neutralization reaction, which is very important, and this, from this section you can expect at least 2 marks. Okay, so let's move on to the reaction of metallic oxide with acids. What happens when acids combine with the metallic oxide? Now, metallic oxides, they are usually basic in nature, isn't it? So when I say oxide, that itself tells that it is basic in nature, and they are basic oxides, isn't it? So the reaction between a metal oxide and acid will again give you salt and water. Okay, so metal oxide plus acid will give you salt and water, which is nothing. This is a general formula which you need to remember. Metal oxide plus acid will give you salt plus water. Example, calcium oxide plus hydrochloric acid will give you calcium chloride plus water. In the same way, magnesium oxide plus sulfuric acid will give you magnesium sulfate plus water. Again, these are the salts. Clear? So metal oxide, whenever it combines with the acid, it will give you salt plus water. So let us see how does the reaction of non-metallic oxide with base takes place. So non-metallic oxides, again they are in acidic in nature. Here it is basic in nature. Metal oxides are basic in nature, whereas non-metal oxides are acidic in nature. Here they are basic oxide and here they are acidic oxides. Therefore, non-metal oxide, when it combines with the base, when it comes in contact with any base, we get salt and we get water. Therefore, carbon dioxide plus any base, any base, calcium hydroxide we have taken here, it has given you calcium carbonate plus water. Okay, so this is the little confusion part. You need to be very clear. Metal oxides are basic in nature, non-metal oxides are acidic in nature. These are basic oxides and they are acidic oxides. Okay, so both byproducts are same, salt and water itself. It's just that the formation of how they form with acid and base differs. Next, what do all acids and all bases have in common? Now, a common thing in all the acids is that acids, they produce hydrogen ions when it is dissolved in water. Okay. Now, example for this is when H2SO4 is dissolved in water, we get the hydrogen ion separated from sulfate ion. Okay, so the common thing that we need to understand in all the acids, very, very important part. This is going to continue in your chemistry chapters. So whenever a acid comes in contact with the water, they always produce the H plus ions. And this is the most common factor in all the acids. In the same way, our bases which are soluble in water, they are called as alkalis and they are soapy to touch, bitter and corrosive. Okay, this is important again. This are also will continue our upcoming chemistry chapters that alkalis are soluble in water. Okay, and these are nothing but the bases itself. They are soapy to touch, they are little bit bitter and they are corrosive. So example, NaOH, our sodium hydroxide will disperse itself into sodium plus OH ions. These are the OH ions, our hydroxide ions. This is our H plus ions. This is our hydroxide ions. So let me write down here hydroxide ions and these are the hydrogen ions. Okay, so this releases the OH ions and this releases the H ions. So whenever they are acids, they release the H ions, and whenever they are the base, that is the alkalis, they release the hydroxide ions. Now neutralization reaction, as I said, the reaction in which acid reacts with bases to produce salt and water, which we discussed in the previous part. Acid plus base will give you salt and water. Anything, any acid, it is HX plus MOH. It is just an example. It will give you MX plus HOH, H plus ion, that is this H plus ion plus our basic hydroxide ions will give you the water content. Therefore, example number 1 is HCl plus NaOH will give you NaCl plus H2O. Same way HCl plus KOH will give you KCl plus H2O. Now, let us understand what happens when acid is added to the water. Now, what is the correct method? In the other way, we have to understand what is the correct method of adding water to acid or acid to water. The process of dissolving an acid or a base in water is highly exothermic. I'm confident that you people know what do you mean by exothermic and what do you mean by endothermic. Okay. So this is where the heat is evolved and absorbed in these two processes. In this, it is actually evolved, and in this, the heat is absorbed and this is evolved. So here what happens here is whenever the acid comes or base comes in contact with the water, it becomes highly exothermic. That means greater amount of heat is released at that time. So therefore, we need to add acid slowly to water. That means we need to add acid to water. This is the correct method of adding the acid to water. We should never add water to acid. Never add water to acid. And so whenever you're adding the acid to the water, let it go, slowly you need to keep adding it, and with constant stirring you need to add it. Now if water is added to the acid, what happens? The heat generate may cause the mixture to splash out and cause burn. It is highly risky. So don't do it. Don't add water to acid, but in fact add acid to water in small amounts with continuous stirring. So let me end the session here. I will come back with the part 2 of acid, bases and salt. Thank you very much.